welcome to Etang 5. Let's go for a quick walk. So there's two entrances to this lake. This entrance gives you access to swims 1 to 3, and the entrance on the other side of the lake gives access to 4 to 8. And as you come through, they'll most of the time these gates are locked, and they'll give you a combination so you can get in and out. Down the track and forward is where you shower, and the charging point for your leisure batteries. There's some solar panels there, and that's the solar charging for your leisure batteries. Straight ahead is swim 1, where I am. To the right is swims 2 and 3. There's also a portaloo just up there that we're using. And what I'll do is I'll take you to swim 1. So I'm not going to record all the way, so I'll stop and then we'll start again when we get to the swim. So just coming into swim 1 now. Like I say, what a view, eh? 8 swims on 100 acres. So give or take, 10-15 acres each. Plenty of water to spread your rods about. Over to my right is swims 2 and 3. Opposite me is swim 8, going down to swim 4. You can see they're building a lodge on swim 1 here. It's not ready yet. I think next year, give or take 100 to 150 euros is what we're hearing for a week's hire on top of the lake swim. Got a nice arbour there and a bench. Like I say, plenty of room for half a dozen bivvies. Plenty of water. So the main water in front of this swim is 20 foot, and it slowly shallows up to around 13 foot at the perimeter of the swim. Probably about 300 yards. Then you've got these 2 bays here. This is really shallow bay, around sort of 3 foot, and you can just see in the distance the shower block. And then you've got the middle bay there, which is what I found is about 10 foot. And one of the predominant spots in this swim, which produces quite regular, is that tall tree in the distance, just the margin on that corner. So yeah, and as you can see, plenty of water. Bit of weed, not too bad. And this is Etang 5 in France, just north of Paris. 2.5 hours drive from Calais. So it's Monday, first time I've been here. I've wanted to come here for a couple of years now. And we're in Peg 1. We booked Peg 1 last summer because it's quite a popular swim. What you can see behind me is quite a shallow bay, and that's one of the areas that the fish will frequent when it's hot. Although at the moment they're not. And one of the reasons I haven't started doing a blog for this trip earlier is we got here and it is just chucking it down with rain, and it's rained for 36 hours constant. So sort of bivvy bound, and just got the rods out and sort of just hunkered down in the bivvy really, and I didn't really fancy doing a blog from the bivvy, so I thought wait till it was nice and sunny. And it's not been too bad, so well, 50-50. Started off alright, had a 28 on the first night on a long rod, fished in a known spot that someone's told us about, so that was good. And then the Sunday afternoon had another one, just over 30 pounds just before dark, so 2 from the same spot. Here we go, first night of the trip, first fish of the trip. Pound shy of 30 pounds, happy days. I'm not sure how far I'm fishing, over 300 yards. And rod rack round, I don't know what time of night it is yet, I guess midnight, something like that. And yeah, nice boat battle. This lovely little two-tone mirror. It's not huge, but first fish from the lake. Yeah, I'll take that. Look at that. just on a regular 18mm wraps, because there's a load of crayfish in this lake. But apart from that, and a Kamakura size 6 hook, nice and sharp, size 4, and that done the business. Yes. A short chunky one, would you believe it? He's 30 pounds. He's just as tall as he is long, but I'm happy. Same spot, same setup. I don't think I mentioned it on the 28, but it's 18mm wrapped and my plastic complex T. I'm just fishing over a few handfuls of 18 and 15mm complex T, nothing else. Probably 100 to 200 baits on a far margin. And this one took me through seriously thick Canadian weed bed, and I was ripping it all out and chucking it over the boat to the near margin, and then suddenly the line was ripping and he was going and I was still stuck in the weed bed. But finally I caught up with him. I'm fishing out in open water at range. I'm not entirely sure, 250, 300 yards. It's quite deep water in front of peg 1, sort of 18s, 20s, and it doesn't shallow up. Doesn't start shallowing up to about the 250 yard mark, where you get in 14s, 13s. And I started on there a slightly different approach. I thought I'd go with particles, chopped tigers, boilies, pellets, ground bait, and I've been pestered by roach. A lot of roach. Basically just sitting there and as it starts swimming towards you and shakes the lead off, and then you're just having to tow those in 250, 300 yards, about 2-3 pound roach. But there you go, lessons learned. So I've moved now, because they just work relentless, so I've had to move that spot further over to the right and start again just fishing over boilies now. And then I've also got one in the bay. I've been fishing in the bay behind me in the day. I've not been doing it at night, but been fishing it in the day where it's been shallow. I've seen a couple in there, but not a lot. I've been told that the fish haven't really been frequenting in there of late. They were earlier on in the spring, when it was spawning time, they were in there, but since then they've been out in the main body of the lake. And I should also say it's August at the moment, so yeah. But yeah, it's beautiful, lovely lake, it really is. People who don't know, it's 100 acres, 8 double swims, and you choose your swim when you book it. We booked this last summer. You've got to book in advance through Fisherman Holidays, so that's where we booked ours. And you'll probably see a little bit of footage. They're building a lodge on this swim, so this is peg 1. And they're building a lodge at the moment. It should be open next year. So at the moment we've got the frame there and a concrete base inside, that's it. We've got some lights and curtains, but there's nothing else in there at the moment. So that should be done, they think, by next season. I think they're looking about 150 euros for that a week. So yeah, the lake's lovely. Fish wise, I'm not sure what the stock is. I guess a couple of hundred in 100 acres, something like that. Maybe 300, 400. I really don't know. It did have 3 big, sort of 35 kilo fish. As a lot of people know, the big one, Dino, that died 2 years ago. But there's reportedly 2 others still in there at 35 kilo plus, 80 pound plus. The big male and scar, or scarface, some people call it. So they're the 2 big sort of target fish in here. There seems to be big fish wherever you go in France these days, doesn't it? But I like a big water and not too many anglers really. And I thought this would suit me. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a learning curve. It's new. Some of the distances, towing out the lines, the rigs over monstrous weed beds, but the line just lay on them. As I've since had those couple of fish, I realised the line just lay on the weed, and you're rowing out there and you sort of go around them and your line just pings off. and as you get towards, you know, where you're fishing, and that's when you can get in contact and play the fish. Yeah, so that's basically up to Monday. That's where we've been at so far. Yeah. Going on to today, not so good, unfortunately. Had some more roach on the open water spot, and then started getting a drop back on my long rod where I've had the 2 fish. I've not had anything out of the bay yet. Just the 2 fish on the long rod out on a what they call the tall tree or the pole spot. I'm not sure, it's 350 yards, something like that. I've hopefully got some little bit of GoPro footage so you can see me dropping the rig, some baits around it and coming all the way back, so you'll get an idea of the distance. But it's a known spot, and that's where those 2 fish come from. And then this afternoon started getting a slow drop back in strong winds, and that just kept going down a couple of bleeps, tightening it up, going down a couple, and I thought it's got to be a roach, so or a rudd or something like that, you know, 2, 4, 5 pound, maybe even a bream, but I didn't think it was a carp, because the 2 carp that I've had have ripped off as they do. So I've put the net in and some forceps and whatnot in the boat, just in case, you know, it is a small fish when I get out there. And I'm going all the way out there, up towards the pole where it all opens up water, and suddenly the line just pinged off the last bit of weed and just kited off to the left. And I was like, uh-oh, this is where the 2 carp had taken me. And I got in there, and it's a weed bed, just a thick weed bed. It's gone through one, then out, up the other end and out, and it's sort of gone in that way, round that way and round. Absolute nightmare. It took me about 15-20 minutes. Mountains of weed on the boat and whatever, and I was just chucking it everywhere. But it was slowly making progress, slowly getting closer and closer. It was a thin strip of weed and a big body, and the line was coming through that. The last bit after I'd gone through the big body twice, going through the thin strip, and I was having trouble with the wind, but went round it a couple of times. Eventually got on the right side so I could grab hold of the weed, and was pulling it off the line where it was going down. And I'd got me landing net out the way, and I was just holding the line and pulling all the weed off, and then was just trying to pull the line up just to see which way it was going to go, because the 2 previous ones I'd done similar, and the line would ping off and suddenly it would scoot off into open water, and you'd wind in and you'd be into a fish again. This time, no, as I was pulling it up, and then suddenly I saw the leader, and I was like, oh, and I just thought I'd carry on, pull up, because I thought there's probably no fish left, it's gone, you know, because I've pulled the leader up and there's not much resistance. And suddenly the side of the boat, just a huge big mirror, I say huge big, but 45-50 pound, just came right up to the top on its side, lay there, looked at me, and then just kicked off and just shot straight down into the weed, as it would do, of course. And then obviously I tried to lever it back. I didn't want it because it went straight into the thick weed bed, and I was trying to you know, put pressure on it and that, and the line was cutting through the weed, and I could feel it judging up, and I thought, I'll just keep it up, and then it was come to a lock, and it's like, do I, don't I? Do I just give it a bit more, or do I have to slacken off and try and pull the wind? I just thought I'd give it a bit more, then suddenly pop, that was it. It just flew out. I just couldn't believe it after all that effort, going through all that weed bed and that, and getting it all out. Bars of weed either side of the boat, couldn't see my battery, and it was just weed everywhere. And I go and lose the bloody thing. And then by the time I get back, Caroline's holding the other rod in the bay behind me, and that had ripped off as well. So my first bite in the bay this afternoon, and it had gone and ripped off. Caroline just sort of grabbed the rod and was holding the spool to make sure the hook set, and then just sort of let it go into a weed so I could go and pick it up. So I came back here dejected, picked up the rod, went out there and out, and got towards the spot, and the lead sort of line all kited up through weed. It's quite shallow behind here, it's only 3-4 foot, so it's not going to be so bad to get it through the weed. And then suddenly just popped up, the lead popped out, or the rig popped out, sorry, there was no lead, the lead had gone, the rig popped out, and the rig had parted. It parted the rig just on the bottom of the knot, so not the best of afternoons. Luckily I didn't see that fish, I don't know what it was. So it's 2-2 at the moment to the carp, or me, whatever. huge fish for tank 5, but I'm made up because I've lost 2 this afternoon. One after a boat battle. We're actually see it right next to the boat. It's good fish, 45-50 pounds. And while I was doing battle with that one, I had to take on another one. By the time I got to that rod, the rig had parted. I'm made up with this. Lovely little pin scales all over it. Same rod again, so I've had four bites now on one rod, and I've had 1 bite in the bay, in the shallow bay, so hopefully that shallow bay rod might start doing the odd bite this week, as the wind's turning in my favour and it's getting sunny, so which is good for this swim. So I've been told anyway. It's our first time here, so what do I know? What a lovely mirror. Bring you to the facilities, what they are anyway. You've got a sink there and that, and got a toilet there and a shower there. It's pretty basic. It's fed from the water's fed from the lake itself, and you've got like a unit there that heats up the water. It's something. It's not the best, but it will do. There you go, folks. 1 £60 Tang 5 mirror carp. Caught it 300 yards out and actually played it all the way into the bank. Absolutely over the moon. 18mm complex T, tipped with a bit of ESP yellow plastic corn. Just a few handfuls of bait off a baited area on a slight bar in the middle of the lake. Oh, now is that one beast or what? So I thought I'd just go through the bait that I've been using on this trip so far, what I've brought with me basically. Obviously start with the boilies, and shock horror, I've not brought crave with me for a change for one of my European trips. Bought good old complex T. I've got 15 and 18. I've been using the freezer range in the last few days. I've got some reddies as well. There's no sort of restrictions on the bait on this lake, so towards the end of the week that's what I probably will switch to once I've run out of the freezers, which are air drying over there at the moment just to keep them good. And on the hook baits I've been using the 18mm reddies and also the 20mm hardened hook baits that you get in here, and I'll go about the crave and that, the crayfish in a minute, but yeah, I'm having to wrap those as well. And on one spot I'm just fishing boilies because I've not been here before. I don't know what works, don't work. I'm trying different things on different rods, so I've got one rod which is just boilies, 15 and 18mm, and that's produced 4 bites so far. I've landed 3, 26, 28 and 30, and lost 1. So obviously the boilie only approach is working. And then in the bay here where it's shallower and that, I'm fishing particles and boilies, so I've got the same on with the complex T boilies. I've also topping it up with some Coppins, good old Coppins 8mm pellets. You can see those, get those anywhere and that, so nice. They're slightly oily, not too bad, quite firm, but yeah, Coppins, you can't go wrong with them, can you? So that's those. On the particle front, obviously the bulk is the mixed particles. I've also got some pigeon conditioner in there, top it up, quite like that aniseed smell that you get with pigeon conditioner. So I've made all that, I prepped all that up at home and brought that with me, and I've got that the mixed particles. Good old chopped tigers, you can't go wrong with chopped tigers. So, yeah, and they see quite a bit of tiger nut in here because of the crayfish problem. So yeah, chopped tigers. A bit of maize. Been putting a bit of maize in, not a lot, just a little bit. You know, just a bit of colour in that, bit visual. Help with the hook baits as well, which I'll come to. Then you've got your whole tiger nuts. I've been putting a few in, not too many, and then using the fake tiger nuts on the hairs because of the crayfish in the lake here. And then good old jolly green or jolly blue giant, as it's Tesco sweet corn. And I've been putting in 2 tins of sweet corn to a 10 kilo bucket of bait, and then soaking it in hemp oil, if you can see that, and some CSL liquid as well. So that's what's been going in the bay swim, bay spot even. And then out in open water, I've been doing basically both. So I've got a big bed of particles, and then just off the particles I'm just spreading, just trickling a few handfuls of boilies out, and I'll put one rod bang on the bait, on all the heavily baited spot, and then a rod just off it, about 20 foot off it to the side, just a sprinkling of boilies, 15 and 18 just coming off it. And that's where I produced the 60 from last night, was on that rod off the baited area. So the tactic that, you know, a lot of people use, and something that I quite like as well. The rod that has been on the baited area, that's produced roach, sort of 2-3 pound roach. There's also bream, rudd and roach hybrids as well. And to be honest, the big fish last night I thought was another roach or bream, because it was a slow drop back, about 4 or 5 bleeps. Went out there and just hit it and pumped it in, sort of thing. 300 yards. I've gone out with the inflatable boat to drop it down there, and pumped it in thinking it was a bream, and then it came alive in the margin, sort of thing. Started kiting. As soon as the line started kiting, I knew it was a fish. So that's basically the baited on. That's the bait front. On the hook baits, like I say, I've been wrapping these. So I've got the 20mm hardened hook baits. If you can see that, that's all. That's wrapped up. And you've got to do it in here because the crayfish in here, I noticed, is an absolute nightmare. I pulled in a wee bed when we first came, just what drifted in off the margin, and piled it all up. And there was 4 or 5 adult crays in that wee bed, and I don't know, it must have been 50 to 100 small young crayfish just darting all over the place as I'm pulling in out the weed. And that was just a small patch of weeds. So just imagine how many crays are in 100 acres. Must be millions of the buggers. And your rigs and rods don't last long, so if you can see that, that's what's left of my, if I let it focus, that's what's left of it, basically, a boilie burger. That was a 20mm hardened hook bait, so, and that's what they've done to it in about 10-12 hours. You can see the wraps, they're just working away at the wraps. And then on my other, in the bay rod, bit of plastic and 2 flake corn. That's it. The bait's gone. I've been double wrapping, so a lot of people will probably say, "Oh, we'll wrap that way and that way." I've done that as well. Still nothing. I've come back in the mornings with 4 bits of wrap and no bait. When I've had double 18mm baits out there, and 4 bits of plastic in the morning. So yeah, they're ravenous. I've noticed as well, so what I was thinking with the particle is the more particle I put in, then maybe the hook baits will last. No, it just seems to bring them on even more. Seems to be the boilie only rod seems to be the one what seems to last a bit longer. The rod's actually fishing for longer than the particles and that, so something to learn. Obviously the biggest baits I've got is a 20mm, so I think probably on hindsight 22, 24s would be a better option here. They'll last longer. You'll get a few more hours out of them, so if I come here again, or anyone else is thinking of coming in, that's definitely what I'd bring with me. Lots of bait wraps and lots of large hard hook baits to last through the week. So, but basically that's my baiting approach for this trip. So I just thought I'd go through the rigs that I've been using here. Fairly standard, straightforward stuff really, to be honest. So the braid I'm using is the Gardner Old Skin in brown colour, £25. The hooks, the main hooks I've been using is the Calder Kamakura size 4s, if I'm using a single 18 or 20mm. If I've been using a double bait, which I was at the start of the trip, then I've been using the Calder curve shank size 4s. And it's just fairly simple, no knot, that's not basically. Up a loop for the hair. I use quite a short hair because I'm using the Calder extender stops, just to try and combat the craze slightly. Just through there. Link that off. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but basically quite a short hair there. And then I'm wrapping that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Back through. It's quite thick material, this. Pull that tight. Get the hair straight back of the shank, just like so. Thread on the large kicker. I've got a large brown kicker here. Just moisten it a bit, just help it slide on easier. Just get that angled nicely like that. Okay, perfect. Then I'm using a Fox tungsten sinker. Again, because it's thick, just braid, moisten that up. Slide that down. Lets me pop that off. Just moisten it up so it slides down nicely to about 1 inch off the hook, and then I'll just twist that and get the flat end level with the hook. There you go. And then I'm using quite a short length there, see, compared to this bucket it's probably about 5 inches, just overhand knot, like so, and I'll just get that tight both ends. Snip off the tag. And I'm just pushing a little tiny towel rubber on the end. Hook link, remember to remove the little point coatener. There you have it. That's what I'm using basically. That's it, simple as that. And then I was putting a 18 or 20mm with an extender stop on, wrapped on the end of that. That is as simple as it is. You don't want anything messy or silly. And like I say, if I'm going for a double bait, then I'll switch to a curve shank, and then I've got the 2 baits coming off the hook. And that is my rigs. Right, well, it's Friday morning. I suppose this is going to be our last update of the trip, so I'll just do a run through, a recap of where we are and what's gone on over the week. So I managed 5 fish, 3 20s, a 30 and a 60, so that's all good. That was the top of my sort of expectations for the time of year and the weather and that, so I ain't complaining there. I've lost 2 on the Monday. Went out in the boat and had a boat battle, and unfortunately lost a good fish. It was on the surface next to the boat. It's got to be 45-50 pounds. Got in the weed and the hook pulled. While I was rowing back, suddenly I could see Caroline bent into one of my other rods holding it for us. By the time I got back and then swapped rods, went out on that one. Unfortunately the rig had parted, so I'd lost 2 fish quick succession on the Monday, so it was a bit of a low point. Then the following night, I'd been done. I didn't know it. I had a single bleep during the night on the long rod, and when I went to retrieve the rod and re-rig and rebait, the lead had been ditched. The lead had dropped, so anyone knows. I mean, don't know what sort of fish it is, but obviously the lead had gone, so I've been done by something. And then yesterday, I moved a couple of fish back into the bay that you can see behind me. That was where I'd lost one that Caroline was holding the rod for us. I did have 1 fish out of this bay, long, right at the bottom of the bay, a 24 on my birthday, which is one of the aims why we came here, why we come here in the summer, to see if I can have a birthday fish from this lake. I must be mad, but there we go, and I did it. 24 pound mirror, nothing massive, but it's a lot bigger than the one I had last year on the V channel in Belgium. That was £2 common, so it's a bit better than that fish. And then so put 2 rods in there. I drifted down on the boat, standing up with the outboard just on one. I think that was a fish just showed over my shoulder. I was drifting down just very slowly, just mooching around, see if I can see anything, because the day before there was a load of cloud and that on my birthday and that, and I dropped a rig in the cloud and it went a couple of hours later. But when I was playing it, there was a load of fish there, I don't know, 10, 12, whatever, and they were just bolting, shooting everywhere, because it's quite shallow in there. It's 2, 3, 4 foot at maximum. Where I picked the fish up, it's about 2.5 foot. And so when I was drifting around, I see 1 grassy, 40 to 50 at a guess, and 1 mirror, 20-25, I guess, one of the stock fish. That was it for that whole bay. That's all I saw. It was all clear. You just knew. I knew when I was drifting around. I could see the bottom. I could see all the clear patches, the weed and that, as the day before. That bottom half was all cloudy and you couldn't really see anything. It was just like coffee, and you could just see these fresh silty patches stirred up. You knew the fish were grubbing around, so it was just dropped a rig there and put a bit of bait. But yesterday, just see the 2, so I dropped a rig where I'd previously caught on my birthday, and then dropped a rig where I saw that mirror grubbing around yesterday, that 1 single fish, just see if he'd come back. But it was actually and I had a take yesterday. It was very subtle, just the bend was just tipping round. We'd had a bleep, then a single bleep, and it's just tipping, and we sort of walked up, and I'm just watching the rod, and then I just see it bend round, and I just quickly struck, hit, and I could feel the fish, and then pop, it was gone. It was out, and just see a bow wave, and it was gone. I don't know, maybe it was the grassy. I know they have quite tough mouths, they're quite hard to hook, so that's what I've got in my head, but I don't know, it might have been something else that snuck in the afternoon. I put the rod out about lunchtime, and the bite was about 5 o'clock, so I've been out about 5 hours. So obviously there's always a chance of fish drifting in and out. And then redone the rods, and had a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, with the long rods. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I had a couple of bleep drop back, went out there and that, and it was a bit of a mare, and got tangled up in another rod, and eventually pulled up a dead bait and a trace and a load of braid and that, so I can only think that maybe a pike or something was trailing, got caught up in my lines and managed to free himself with the resistance of my line and left the lure and hanging off my line. But still, it's all cleaned up, got the rods back out last night, and nothing's happened. So at first light this morning, 5 o'clock, I was back out there again, fresh rigs, fresh baits, hoping, get something going, see if I can get a bite. I'll probably do the same again after lunchtime, do the rods again, and again last light, do them again for the night, so before we pack up and head home. So it's been a learning curve, and I've really enjoyed the trip. I knew it was going to be hard. It's it's Etang 5, it's tricky, it's the summer, it's hot, but then like I say, it's tricky, it's hard. Obviously sometimes you see these catch reports, sometimes people bag up on that, in the spring and the autumn it can look easy as well at times for certain anglers, but I know, it's 100 acres, a couple of hundred fish maybe. It's not a typical French runs water, so, and it's got some big dark chunky beasts in here to go for, 60s, 70s. I think there's a couple, if they're still in here, around 35 kilo mark, which is 80 or whatever. I know for the crayfish I definitely need to up my game if I'm to return here, up my game on the to tackle the crayfish with my hook baits, either with big plastics or big 20, 22, 24 mil hard baits, so they actually last longer. They're out, you're actually fishing for a lot longer, as opposed to me. I've redone the rods at 5 o'clock this morning. I'm going to go back out at lunchtime, going to go back at last light. You're talking every 5-6 hours just to make sure that I've got a bait on. And then just tackling the weed and the long fishing long. That's again, it's been something to learn. And then I've used the fish finder. I don't really like gadgets, technology. For me, it's not really part of fishing. I'm not into any of that. No bait boats, nothing like that. I don't think it has a place in fishing really. But I have to admit that the fish finder, when it worked, it's gone faulty now already, but when it worked, I did find a spot out there, out in open water where it shelved up. I was never going to get a rod on it, 300 plus yards, and that's what done the 60. So I just have to hold my hands up and say, fair enough, technology caught me the biggest fish out of here. I think, like I say, if I come back, probably spring or autumn, possibly when at least there isn't as much weed to deal with. You've still got all the crays and everything else, but you're probably going to be fishing a bit more effectively. You're going to have lines straight to your spots and that. You'll get better bite indication and things like that. So if I come back, I think it will be a spring trip. Like I say, this main aim, we booked this last summer. Main aim was to come out here, enjoy the French summer, and see if enjoy the fishing during my birthday and that, and see if I can catch a fish. So job done. Really enjoyed the trip. We'll be heading off to Italy in 2 weeks to Acquavita. If no one's heard of that, it's sort of halfway between Turin and Milan. So really hopeful and it's the first time I've been fishing in Italy. Been to Italy and worked in Italy many times over the last 20 years, but never gone there for the aim of fishing. So I'm looking forward to that. So dragging Caroline along with me again, with all the gear, boat and everything else. So yeah, until then, au revoir.